Good evening and welcome to Slam the Gavel, the show that tells it all regarding family court, other court issues, as well as CPS. I'm your host, Marianne Petrie. Patriots Against CPS Corruption invites you to attend our March for Texas Children. DFPS has failed the families of Texas. The Texas Special Committee on DFPS has also failed to hear the parents and their children. Time to make our voices heard and surround yourself with those on the same mission as you. Join us on the March for Our Children, September 21st, 2022, starting at 1 p.m. at 701 West 51st Street, Austin, Texas, 78751. I have a brand new guest. I'm finally having Angel Law on my podcast. She is a long-time 9-year survivor of family court. She is a grateful mother of 3. She is a paralegal and assists on cases of extreme corruption, violence, and sexual assault. Having learned from legal greats, she became a paralegal in an effort to help the many families across this country being systematically destroyed by these corrupt courts. Today, we will explore the topic of her journey to successfully file a judicial complaint and motion to remove a deranged judge from her matter, only to face more judicial retaliation. And Angel Law hopes to share this experience and help others advance their own cases. And this is going to be like Court 101 recusing judges and other individuals. I welcome you.
Thank you so much, Marianne. It's an honor and pleasure to be here. You are an inspiration to so many people, and I often think about what a kind and loving person you are. That you're indelibly good, and I value that so much that you remained good-hearted despite what you've been put through. And I thank you very much for helping other people, and you shine goodness into true darkness. So thank you very much for the work you do.
Well, thank you. I appreciate all of those kind words.
So, my beautiful friend, let's talk about how to get rid of some bad and corrupt and horrible judges.
Definitely, because we had talked earlier on the phone and we were talking about, isn't it odd? And did I find it odd that in our cases, we were really mistreated, and other women, and maybe even guys who are good looking, are they going after people like this?
There's definitely something bizarre that goes on. I've helped people who are actually like supermodels. Heidi Klum has been put through hell. Angelina Jolie has been put through hell. Um, Arguably, I won't go into the Depp case because that was like the most too poisonous, druggy. Like I hate that case because all it does is underscore that somebody was allowed to retry a case. If Disney wants Pirates to have another sequel, then they'll pay for a court in Virginia that lacks jurisdiction. They can forum shop to make a made for TV court battle. And once again, that was complete misrepresentation of what goes on in a family court proceeding or any court for that matter. It was the trashiest. We wouldn't even call it a B movie. It was like a Z movie on what actually a court proceeding looks like. There was, that was. I don't want to insult kangaroos by calling that a kangaroo court. So I don't really know what the Johnny Depp trial was. It was just a sham. That was a TV sham. They obviously didn't have any professionals consulting to give an opinion what court proceedings actually look like. A court reporter also standing there pretending to type when people are talking over each other is a de facto an impossibility, and nobody stopped. And also a judge would be in deep trouble for allowing the observers to make loud sounds, faces, because it would influence a jury. So what went on in that circus, that sideshow, that's what I'll call it, the sideshow, the Johnny Depp Amber Heard sideshow, because that thing was just a disaster for men and women alike.
Mhm.
So let's not focus on those sort of shenanigans. Let's focus on the horrible corruption of evildoers who find their way into positions of power throughout the country. Political hacks. Don't believe me. Judge Judy, TV judge, Judith Scheinlin, who used to be a New York State prosecutor, she's the one that coined the phrase that family court is a dumping ground for moron judges and political hacks. Her
Mhm.
words, not mine. And I agree with you, Judge
Mhm.
Judith Scheinlin. So
Mhm.
that's the hellhole that most people have no idea that they're about
Mhm.
to face. I would say the number one thing that all parents should look at is finding a way to stay out of court.
Mhm.
The judges don't know the law, and you
Mhm.
don't find this out until you're far and your assets are being erased,
Mhm.
really vacuumed up by corrupt attorneys, charlatan, so-called experts, the cottage industry, what I call court parasites. It's a
Mhm.
racketeering enterprise. You would be much better off going to a casino. I
Mhm.
mean, way better off going to a casino. Go to a casino. If you and your ex should just go to a roulette table and bet black and red, and then wager the entire estate, and you'll have a better outcome than what's going to happen in the family court. So it's a complete sham. It's a complete
Mhm.
sham. Don't I I have helped or been involved and helped whatever over 1,000 cases. I've never seen the court get it right, not once.
Mhm.
So that doesn't mean the system isn't broken. It's working exactly the way they designed it, to take everything that you have and leave you with nothing and destroy your children.
Mhm. Oh,
So
definitely.
if you want that, if you want to have, like your children's mental health permanently destroyed, and then like physical symptomology, for yourself, for your children, multi-generational damage, go to family court. That is the best place, like, ever to have your life destroyed and your family in a multi-general aspect destroyed. Go there.
And
Yeah.
people don't know this. They think this is like Law and Order. This is how this is going to work. This is not criminal court, people. This is an illegitimate courtroom.
Run by frauds and scam artists. Yeah,
Mhm.
totally.
Mhm.
Yeah. So, but I know this is not a laughing matter when you're actually first going through it,
Mhm.
because you actually think that you could possibly learn the law and then the court would apply it. And if you tell the truth, that the judge is going to see. Now I've met a couple good judges. Uh, I don't know, like two out of a few hundred cases that I've attended. I've met two. Yeah, so if you if you want those odds of like less than 1%, family court's also a good idea for you. So settling, right? It can and none of this is legal advice, right? We're talking here
Mhm.
about our experiences. Um Settling cases, even if done in pieces, is a far better idea. Like, how do you eat a pie? One slice at a time. If
Right.
you try to eat the whole thing, you'll choke. Oh, great. That's what the attorneys, and believe me, it's the charlatans, the absolute lowest, like the lowest of the low, find their way into family court. So,
Mhm.
I mean, even if a couple starts off with, like, you're going to take this bank account, I'm going to take this bank account. Boom, stipulate to that, bank account's done. Credit cards, let's stipulate those debts. Boom, that's done. Cars, stipulate that piece, that part's done. Even if your judgments need to come in tiny pieces, so be it. When I had a horrible human being on the other side of my matter, and even when you get stipulations out of court, you can go into a court if the other side doesn't want to follow them. In my matter, there was something called a CCP 664.6. That's a motion to enforce an out of court agreement, written or verbal, that into a judgment, and
Mhm.
the court orders it. So if somebody wants to sign something one day and then be a crazy person and pretend that they forgot, or they want to renegotiate, and you've already had a valuable consideration for the agreement, the court can order it. So yeah, that's settle, and don't pay these scoundrel attorneys.
Mhm.
Find find paralegals, legal services. You know, like I said, little pieces are the best. I mean, most people can't handle everything. I think that when parents start off, if you say, let's keep status quo for the kids, I'll be cooperative, um, most people will go for that.
Mhm.
You know, if you have a horrible human being who, let's say there's a status quo of like 80-20, and right, because we're sorry, because we're gonna have to get to the recusing a judge, but let's say there's a status quo of 80-20, but they're a horrible human being and they think that children are property, and they're like, no, I want 50-50, 50-50, I want to cut the child in half. King Solomon
Mhm.
would declare that's not the true parent.
Mhm.
Never mind, you know. So when parents want to do that, good for you. You know, if you like half and half, great for you. Whatever you want to do, that's for your freaking business. But you know, usually status quo is the nice thing to do for children. But sometimes a real sicko just wants to know that you would write down that you want to cut your baby in half, because they
Mhm.
don't actually care about the child. They actually care about themselves, and they think that
Mhm.
a child is chattel. Um, and so if they want that in writing, and then you say, okay, well, let's do that, but we have flexibility. Okay. You know,
Mhm.
because some people just want things in writing to feel better about themselves,
Mhm.
because they um, maybe they're hung like a tic tac, and they
Mhm.
they like things that they can show off to their friends, saying, look, I'm such a great parent, I got 50-50, I got
Mhm.
50-50. Okay, fine. So moving on, all of those things you want to do, because judges are horrible for the most part. Family court
Mhm.
judges are horrible human beings. There are good judges. I just don't know any. I know two in family court. You know, I
Mhm.
guess
Yeah.
let's blame that on me too. Let's blame that on me. But regarding removing a judge, the reason it's such an important topic is when I meet somebody, the very first thing that I ask is about the judge. If they're local, what I find is that I know how a judge is going to rule. I can tell you, it's like playing fantasy football. Tell me
Mhm.
who your judge is, and I'm going to tell you what's going to happen to your case. I know which corrupt judges go with which corrupt attorneys, and how, you know, it doesn't matter who you are, who's telling the truth. It's because it's a racketeering syndicate, they're going to pick the outcome of a
Mhm.
case, and then they're going to buddy up with their favorite attorneys, and
Mhm.
if you have a certain attorney, you're going to win. So like, it doesn't really matter. Like, you can be an axe murderer and you'll still win if you have the right, you know, combo of evil judge and evil attorney. So
Right.
so when you have a really bad judge, and like we discussed, there's many of them, so many people do need to know this. um Step number one that I learned, and I'm sharing this information because I spent several hundred hours reading case law, reading judicial canons, reading
Mhm.
court websites, reading exemplar complaints. Um, and so I'm trying to share this with you guys so that, now, granted, this isn't like, oh, once you hear this podcast, you're going to be able to instantly do it. You're going to have to make a serious investment, and you're going to need some really great legal help, because writing this on your own,
Mm. It's
what
horrible.
amount to, yeah, get, you know, that's a little bit Pollyannish to believe we could do that. But that being said, instead of being conspiracy theory and everything else, let's talk about the procedure to pry a horrible judge off of your case. So something that I discovered that was really important was step number one. Um, well, wait, I'm going to go backwards. Step zero, before the judge is even really on your case. If you've been assigned a horrible judge, and it's well known that you have a horrible judge, you or your attorney, or I'm going to talk in the me tone, so that I'm not giving anyone legal advice. What I would have done, had I to do it again, knowing the horrible judges that existed, I would file a preemptory challenge, which in California falls under CCP code 170.6, is what I would have used. And this is also something that could be Google searched online, and you can pull up exemplar motions. You know, Google Scholar is a wonderful place
It
for pro
is.
se litigants to start. It's free.
Mhm.
Another place that I love is Scribed, SCRIBD. I'm a subscriber there. Wonderful attorneys often post their successful motions there. I called people who had successful cases, where their pleadings were on there, and I would just call and talk to the attorneys. Lots of great attorneys that are posting their stuff on there are usually people who love the law and love the people and are disturbed by the degradation of the judicial system.
Mm-hmm.
So a 170.6 is before your judge has made any, in my matter, was before a judge has made any substantial ruling. It was 10 days before the judge ever, or within 10 days of the judge being assigned. It's a simple 2-page document that it's like a form that I was able to pull off online, complete, and you can preemptory challenge. You don't need to give a reason. You don't need to explain yourself. When I read the code, it also appears to me that every time you get a new attorney, according to the code, you should get a new 170.6, a preemptory challenge, because if you get a new attorney, they could have a reason to believe that they wouldn't get a fair trial and would therefore need a 170.6. So the best is if I had a really horrible judge, I could just 170.6, 2-page document, file it, boom, be done, be reassigned to somebody else. Typically, in my case, it would be reasonable to assess that the presiding judge would then retaliate and put me with a horrible judge to get me back.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's what they're there to do, not to actually make the system work. They're there to destroy your life. So let's say that you don't have a 170.6, and let's say that you're pro se. Let's say I didn't have I had not previously filed one. Things that I could do is I could put an attorney on. If I'm already midstream and the judge has already been on, I could put an attorney on and then pop the judge off. That's the cheapest chicken. Now, let's say you've already used a 170 point. I've already used a 170.6 preemptory challenge in the current matter with my current attorney or in pro se. As I said, I could get a new attorney and use another one. But in the absence of that, there is what's called a challenge for cause. And I personally had to do a challenge for cause. It's called the CCP 170.1. Now, the really nasty part is if your case has been going on for a long time, a 170.1 is something I was supposed to use as early as possible in a proceeding once there was the appearance of bias or impropriety or embroilment. And it's the quickest way that they can deny you your motion, basically saying that you just don't like the outcomes, and so therefore it's too late. And then if you read appellate law, you're really going to be upset, because what the appellate law says that if you let a judge, even if they're abusing you and everything else, if you let them stay on the case, then you've consented to being abused, is essentially, I'm paraphrasing, but that's about what they say. It's almost like, well, why didn't you leave? He used to beat you for 5 years. Why are you complaining about domestic violence now? It looks like strangulation was something that you sort of enjoyed. And did you call the police? Did you record it? Right? The gaslighting.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so after the Court of Appeals gaslights you with the ridiculous notion that you should have known you could get rid of this judge, or you should have protested on the record for the horrific circumstances that you were facing, you can file. I was able to file what's called a 170.1. What happened in my matter was on or about February 2nd, 2022, I went for the first time before a judicial officer by the name of Nathan Vu. He is a horrible human being. And by horrible human being, and deranged, and I won't define it. He defined it himself, because his personal email address is lunaticesq@yahoo.com. Now, that's publicly available, so I'm not giving any personal information. Like, he wants to publish that email address online. Well, he's a self-proclaimed lunatic. He probably shouldn't be a judge, but in any matter, I was arguing with the attorneys I work with, because they're like, just calm down. He's not as horrible. Like, we'll turn this around. The other side lied about you. We'll show that opposing counsel was lying. And I'm like, I don't want to hear it. I'm like, he is so biased. So then the reason I was able to kind of bridge the arc of time longer was I filed a motion for reconsideration because the orders that were issued were so ridiculous and a complete, in the absence of law, and hateful. And then my judge was threatening me. What happened was, I went into court, never seen this judge before. My ex-husband loves to falsely accuse me of brainwashing my children. But my ex-husband hadn't seen my children in multiple years. So the only person that knows anything about my children is me or the therapist that they have to go see. He has no personal knowledge whatsoever. So making these accusations are completely baseless, based upon zero evidence, hearsay, speculation, fabrication. The judge threatened me with putting my children in foster care. And the judge's language was very specific. He told me that if I continued to petition the court, which is my First Amendment right, that he would take my children away from me. So he tied one constitutional right to another and said, I will restrict your First Amendment right to petition the court with the threat of a Fourth Amendment, first, fourth, it was like fifth, like 14th Amendment, right? Like, I'm gonna tether them together. And clearly, this is wrong on the law. It's a violation of the Judicial Canons, countless, and they're just wrong. Like, anyone with an IQ higher than an ice cube should know that a so-called family court judge should not make extortive threats, wielding the power of the state of California, and threatening to harm my children, and threatening to burden the foster care system. And the judge also has no jurisdiction. So it was really, like, problematic. And this judge, of course, he doesn't see any problem with his conduct, and that says a lot too. So what I did next was I filed a judicial complaint to the presiding judge. Now, I know most people are like, oh yeah, that's so silly, because a presiding judge is usually Captain Cover-Up, and usually the person pulsing if you have a good presiding, you don't have judges like this. But I also knew about Judge Nathan Vu because there was a father who had attempted suicide because Judge Nathan Vu threatened that father with taking his children. So I quickly became aware of what a monster I was dealing with. So I began working on preserving my rights. I filed a complaint with the presiding judge. And what I found was that I had a mandatory duty to file a complaint with the presiding judge and give them up to 30 days to respond. Of course, the responses are ridiculous and cover up and denial, deny, right? Isn't that what bad people do? Like, wasn't me. It was, a shadow. I didn't kill that person. Didn't you see my shadow there? That was a shadow that shot the gun, not me.
Projection.
So, right. And so I did the judicial complaint to the presiding. And the reason I had to do that was it starts a 30-day time clock that they're required to respond to me. And after they present me a ridiculous response, then I have the ability to complain to the Commission on Judicial Performance. And what I had figured out was, through the course of my actions, was that the Commission on Judicial Performance had no ability to take action on a subordinate judicial officer. Most people they have misplaced thoughts, thinking that it has to be a commissioner. No, a subordinate judicial officer is anybody beneath a presiding. So the presiding even had some supervising judge, make a response to me because, I'm just a peasant, and, I'm not even worthy of the pen and paper to send me a response. So then I made the complaint to the CJP, and the CJP, pursuant to the Constitution, I think it's like Article well, it doesn't matter because it's California. Anyways, the point is that judicial complaints to the CJP are wholly confidential. You're not supposed to discuss anything in there. But what I did was I went onto their website and I read absolutely every single page, every single exemplar complaint. I downloaded the Judicial Canons. I built myself an Excel sheet table and I put each one of the Judicial Canons on. Then I went through my transcripts and I designated each page and line number where there was a violation pursuant to that canon. And so it was very methodical. And now all of these things are available online. You can go and download a copy of the Judicial Canons, read it, learn it, know it. The judges don't, I mean, so you're going to be smarter, which isn't that hard. So then you really, have knowledge of the judicial complaints. Like I said, I used a table and then I broke down the many violations. And another thing is, I've heard that some people record their own hearings, or maybe their Ring camera in the ambient background of their home, picks up a court hearing. There's this thing called rev.com that I've heard people use, and it's better than Otter, and it can be very helpful. Now, what I found was the Commission on Judicial Performance did not require that you have a transcript, but I did pay for transcripts. That's part of how I get screwed for hundreds of thousands of dollars. I have to order transcripts at $800 a day to prove just what the court's doing to me. It's just another part of the racketeering syndicate. So then I made a judicial complaint, and the Commission on Judicial Performance in the state of California has a wonderful website. Basically, the state of California got in deep trouble because nobody was overseeing these horrible judges, and that's how we got to where we are today. Good news, they did an audit. They are examining how bad it is, and so now they've replaced a lot of the people. We just had 2 hearings in the past 2 days. They're seemingly great people, and don't trust me because my marriage radar was pretty bad, so I don't know that you want to trust my opinion of character assessment. But in any case, I found them to be wildly helpful. I was able to upload documents when I needed to upload additional documents. I was able to just re-input all of my contact information, and I've uploaded no less than 100 exhibits in my matter. So, and I took the time, I went through transcripts, and then I highlight and I add text in PDF editor, and I kind of point, an investigator to what's going on, because you can't complain about orders. You can only complain about things that are violations of judicial conduct. They don't care how bad the orders that are being made is. Now, that's arguable in my opinion, because one of the judicial canons, is that they're supposed to know the law. So when they're acting in contradiction to the law, when a courtroom becomes its own legislative body and negates the codes that exist, then they're not a judge. This whole thing of discretion, folks, it's discretion within the law. They don't have the right to legislate from the bench, even though they think that they do. Okay. And take notice, people that are in family court, those judges are usually the laughing stock. Real judges, federal judges, they're like, he's a family court judge. She's a family court judge. Who hates them? It's like saying traffic court judge. And I've met really nice traffic court judges. There are a lot of traffic court judges I wish were in family court. And we should have the best judges in family court, because you're deciding contracts of property, businesses, human lives. Why do we have the worst judges ever down there? And they hate being there. They let us know that they have a personal contempt, which in my opinion is de facto bias. You guys hate being here? You guys hate being here, making $200,000+ a year with huge benefits? We're such a problem for you? That's just ridiculous. They've made it a nightmare.
Yes.
And if they don't want to do the job, there's lots of good people out there. It's a lie that somebody else wouldn't step up. There are so many good people. And going into the family court, you lose all faith in the judicial system, and you should. That's a well-placed thought, because it's so bad. So anyways, I filed my judicial complaint. I put a lot of work into it, and if you want results, that's the way things go. You're
Mhm.
going to have to invest your time to make your case, and you can't call somebody and be hysterical, and we can't talk about emotions. We look at the canons, we show the infractions, and there'll be plenty. Like,
Mhm.
nobody needs to hear conspiracy theories, assumptions, drawing conclusions. Use a statement, how it violates a canon.
Mhm.
Statement, how it violates a canon. That's all, folks. It's kind of like doing your taxes, right? Like, well, Mr. Taxman, I had to get this, paper because my printer broke, and like they're like, just give me the receipt, right? So treat treat your case like you're doing your taxes, and which also brings us to the point, folks. If you live in a hellhole like California, like I do, you're basically divorcing yourself every year with the IRS, right? You have to go in and divide your property. They do it in a few hours. Like, your case can be divided in a few hours. County of Sacramento,
Mhm.
or Sacramento of California, they have a pilot program of 1 day divorce, even if you have significant assets. So it's proof. There's proof that this can be
Mhm.
done in 1 day. Areas of higher income, you'll find that the judges are more corrupt. You'll find that the courts are more corrupt. There's all sorts of cottage industry parasites. If you go outside of hellholes like California, San Diego, San Francisco, they don't have these parasite 730 custody evaluators who are just complete frauds and charlatans. If you were to
Mhm.
take two 730 evaluators and put them on at the same time, they both come up with completely different decisions, and they don't know the law. So you should stay
Mhm.
the hell away from them. A 730 custody evaluation is like the biggest sham ever. If the police were interested, they should just go round up the court approved list and just arrest them, because you have a racketeering syndicate right there. There you
Mhm.
go. And then they're the weakest link, and they'll snitch how they give kickbacks to each other, either in a quid pro quo referral relationship, or give attorneys a specified outcome. But we'll get to that, to getting rid of those corrupt evaluators next. So anyways, in the big swamp of recusing a judge, you file your complaints to an oversight board in the matter that I just described. It takes a little bit of time. And then here's another thing that I learned in the process. Ready for this one? At least my knowledge base is the Commission on Judicial Performance cannot take action on a judge who's presently acting on your case.
Mhm.
A little bit problematic. So you better show how the presiding judge is derelict of duty and let the CJP know that's the problem, because you wouldn't have such a bad judge if that presiding judge was doing their job. So it's a rope. It's indivisible bad conduct. And you know what? If you've got a great presiding, well, that's awesome. Good for you. And maybe they'll come down and say, "What in the heck is going on down here?" And maybe they'll reassign the case. But now, getting to my 170.1, back to my 170.1, what I did was I again broke down all of the horrible things that my judge was saying, not just the horrible orders. I didn't really get into the horrible orders, because when I filed it, the response from the judge is, of course, the denial, but then they fabricate out of whole cloth that I'm arguing about the bad orders that they made. That was a complete lie. Like, they
Mhm.
just lied. They're like, "She's upset about the bad orders we're making." I'm like, "Bad orders you're making? That's right. That's truthful. That's the one truthful
Mhm.
thing I've heard." But no, their verified answer was nothing more than gaslighting. It was so stupid. It was like non-responsive. Like, are you responding to this case because your verified answer is ridiculous? So, but
Mhm.
they throw all these lies, and like they're like, "This is not timely." And I'd received the transcripts only like 2 weeks prior to drafting my motion to remove the judge. I'm like, "How much faster did you want me to write it? Look at all the bad things you did. Like, this took a lot of time."
Mhm.
And so I dissected all of the statements that were just in complete violation of judicial canons and a departure from judicial canons by ignoring the law, right? I didn't talk about how bad the orders were because I have to appeal them. I'm not allowed to complain about the bad orders. You must appeal every bad order, which, whatever. The point is, the conduct was so egregious that I focused only on the violation of the judicial canons. And of course, the judge denied any responsibility. Just like shockingly, but actually it's not so shocking, right? They're such a sociopath that they see nothing wrong with the way that they're behaving. They have such a lack of awareness as to how they're destroying the public confidence, how they're destroying families. Let's just say that this judge was having a bad day. Let's say that his child had been murdered that day by an abuser, like many of the parents in family court, and he was having a really bad day. Well, maybe he would come back. And there's actually a legend of a judge. I think his name is Castillo, down in San Diego, and he actually apologized. There was another judge up in Los Angeles, I want to say, a female, who also made a mistake, and she apologized on the record and said, oh wow, I got this wrong. Let's correct my inadvertence.
Mm-hmm.
My oversight, which is, that's what we think we're going to get, right?
Mm-hmm.
But in any case, mine was deny, blame me, set up the Salem witch trial, put her on the post, can we burn her alive? And so luckily that decision, after the judge said that he was not biased and he should be left on the case, and I'm the problem and there's nothing to see here, it got sent to a neighboring county for another judicial officer to review. This is all public information. It was nerve-wracking because you're thinking, wow, this other judge just doesn't know how many other cases there are and how bad this judge is and how many lives this judge has destroyed. Will I be believed? This judge is lying about the facts. Litigants have a hard time being believed. And when you're really, abused so severely by the courts, right? You have a significant distrust for the system, and for good cause.
Mm-hmm.
I was so grateful that another judicial officer, actually the presiding judge of County of Los Angeles Civil Court Division, Judge David C. Cowan, wrote in total 18-page decision that detailed the severe misconduct, the departure from well-established law, the departure and the exiting from the acting judge's jurisdiction, exceeding jurisdiction, acting in a manner that was not part of a discharge of official duties because he was so far out of his jurisdiction. Mm-hmm. And it was a very thoughtful response. Mm-hmm. And so, I say that because, right, this matter makes it to a civil court, and a judge takes so much time, right? He could have just granted my motion, but instead, tremendous resources went in to thoughtfully breaking down the events that went on, and not my opinion, not to help me, looking at transcripts and the facts of the case. So my judge was then ordered by this judge to be removed. And regrettably, my judge, who was removed, was then, it's kind of like the Catholic Church scandal, where they move the perverts somewhere else. Like that's what went on with the Catholic Church, because nobody believed those children either. So guess what, guys? Like, you're just part of a movement that's similar to the Catholic Church scandal. No one believes us. We have to expose it. And then eventually, the average person will say, oh my gosh, I know what family court is. It's a disaster. So that, you would never leave your child nowadays alone with a priest. You should never leave the custody of your children's decisions to a family court judge. It's very, parallel. But all of that being said, he was removed, and I guess he's being hidden maybe in civil court or a criminal court. I got to look and see where they stuck this guy. But so then my case got sent back down to be put in front of a new judicial officer. The supervising judge, whose name is Julie Palafox, who I've had probably 50 pages of ex parte communication, and I don't really think that she should be touching anything in my case, because she and I have had such a numerous exchanges, not only on my case but on other cases. And so in any matter, Julie Palafox on July 26, 2022, took the order that Judge David Cowan had issued, and she altered it. So she committed fraud upon the court, and what she did was she wrote a minute order falsely stating that I had disqualified Judge Nathan Vu pursuant to a preemptory challenge on July 20th, 2022. Nothing could be further from the truth. And she distinguished the code by CCP 170.6. She then assigned my judge. She assigned me to another judge who I call an assassin judge. His name is James Waltz. And I've complained directly to Julie Palafox about James Waltz, so it was very telling that she would assign me to him. I appropriately filed a 170.6 preemptory challenge against James Waltz, relying on the fraud upon the court that Julie Fox had just created by falsifying that I had used a 170.6 on Judge Nathan Vu. He denied my 170.6 preemptory challenge. So they did this. Okay. So that was on August 2nd, 2022, that they committed that. It was like, it's a rope. It's this woven fabric of fraud to deprive me of one of the functions of the court. One day after that, I received a phone call from another young lady who was also being threatened by the same horrible Judge Nathan Vu. And let's just say that I made sure that she got the help that she needed. And 2 days later, she had the appropriate motion to remove Judge Nathan Vu. It was served upon him on, I think, August the 4th, 2 days later. Hi, hello, how are you? 2 days later. She removes Judge Nathan Vu again for the exact same misconduct of threatening a victim of domestic violence with the removal of her children and putting her child in foster care. Similar fashion. Well, Judge Vu actually never gives a ruling, never responds to her request to disqualify him, which is a violation in the state of California. But in any case, she then too gets, there's a fraud upon the court where Judge Julie Palafox alters the civil code that she disqualified Judge Vu on, and she assigns that mother to James Waltz as well.
Oh, no.
Little bit of a pattern of conduct there, do we see? I wonder if that's going to have to get reported or might have already been reported. So in any case, I then have to go before Judge James Waltz. And I really don't have a good situation there. But, I'm going to have to deal with that on its own merits. So in any case, that's my story of number one, filing a complaint with your presiding. It's just mandatory. It's just a mandatory function of the procedure. Then a 170.6 would have been the best, a preemptory challenge. Get a new attorney, even if you only use them for a very short time, to get rid of a nasty judge. Hardest hill to climb is going to be a removal for cause, and it is hard. And you have to personally serve a judge. There are so many very technical aspects of removing a family court judge. So I had to, my 170.1 motion, I had to prepare it with all of the bad acts, the exhibits. I had to personally serve the judge. And by personally serve the judge, I mean, you have to go to their courtroom. If they are in chambers or in the building, then their clerk is able to accept it, and it's considered good service. In my matter, when I went to have a process server, but I accompanied the process server because I know the shenanigans that go on at the court. When they went to the courtroom, the doors were locked. We called, they said, wait outside. They still wouldn't open the doors. And then when I called again to say, open the doors, Orange County Clerk Sandra Lee was snickering, and she said, "Oh, looks like the judge, he just left." Thank God I have that recording, of that conversation, because I was on speakerphone on in a public area, and I had a witness also hear it, and I needed to, make sure that I was memorializing an obstruction of justice, because they had me locked out of the courtroom, and she was laughing at me, and so that was pretty terrible. So, I was challenged whether or not to serve the judge at his home over the weekend, but instead I waited to the following Monday morning. And when another attorney had approached the clerk, and I checked to see that the judge courtroom was not dark. The judge was served at that moment. Once again, the clerk attempted to obstruct justice, and she was telling the process server not to leave and that he was required to stay there. And clearly, she has no authority to give somebody such instructions. They're just so corrupt. So what it showed is that there was a collusion and a conspiracy to obstruct justice between the clerk and the judge. And when that nasty little clerk did that, I said, "What's your name?" And she said, "Excuse me." And I said, "What is your name? You are a public employee. You are required to state your name. State your name." And then when she told me her name, I said, "Great. I'm going to go downstairs and I'm going to talk to a bailiff, and I'm going to make an incident report for your misconduct and your willful obstruction of justice. So I just want your full name. Now, Miss Sandra Lee, who is your supervisor? I want to speak to them right away." And suddenly she her IQ exceeded the tip of an ice cube. It was like this remarkable event. It was wonderful. I'm so happy I was able to save her. That was nice. So in any case, just to let you know, like, the stuff that they'll pull, guys, this isn't. I mean, this is a dangerous place. Keep your family away from the family court. It's not a court. It's a courtel.
Yes, and I've also heard that the clerks have more power than the judge. And I also refer to them, these clerks, as horrors of the court.
That's accurate. Now, everybody take notice. In 2016, the County of Orange Courthouse, they got charged with racketeering by the Department of Justice. And it was clerks and judges, hand in glove. So if like the whole notion that they aren't criminals, like I said, nobody has to believe me, right? I'm a stupid litigant. I'm so stupid. Nothing I say is believable. You don't even have to read my declarations if you're a judge, right? Because we're just stupid litigants that know the most about our cases, but we're emotional. So don't believe a word that they say. Don't read those declarations. Make decisions without reading the litigants' declarations. You know the way it works.
And we're vexatious and litigious.
Oh, yeah.
We all are.
Horrible. We want to be at court. We want these horrible human beings who are often childless making decisions on our cases. Clerks, I mean, I catch them having ex parte communications. I've caught them getting tickets from attorneys. I catch them exchanging money on Venmo, on crypto accounts. They also exchange it through their spouses. I have lots of screenshots of this. I mean, I have proof of it. It's not like, guys, here's the other thing. They do so many bad things. Don't make stuff up. Just make exhibits. And then, like, anything that you want to prove or say, make sure you have an exhibit. Like, get an exhibit, and anything that you could prove from that exhibit, you're allowed to say. If you don't have an exhibit for what you're about to say, no one's going to believe you. So even like when I go to prepare a motion, the facts of the case don't matter. I get like 20 of my exhibits that show the misconduct, and then I have to write my declaration and write the motion from what can I prove? Instead of writing it and trying to find an exhibit to support my position, I get all of, and sometimes I have too much. Like I have one set of exhibits that's 710 pages for one motion because there's so much misconduct. So anyways, that is my 1 hour story of getting rid of a bad judge. And it looks like I'm going to have to do it again. It's deja vu. Here I
Oh,
go
man.
again. And I'm going to have to get rid of my current judge. And my current judge, it's very traumatizing for me to be in front of him because I know who he is. His bailiff had an accidental ex parte communication with me because they one time mistook me for an attorney. And I was silent, and they mistook me for being an associate attorney of an attorney that they really like. And what was said to me was that that was their favorite attorney in the courthouse. So, that's an ex parte communication with me, and it also designates bias. And I had that personal communication. I've also complained about my current judge to the presiding. I'm very good friends with children who have aged out of the system that were placed with their rapist father. And, so it's like traumatizing. Like I know a rape victim because of my current judge, James Waltz. And he is at fault for this. And it would just be better in the interest of justice, probably, that I should actually have a change in venue, which I've read up on CCP 397, which is a California code that I could move for a change in venue in the interests of justice. And it seems like I should probably do that because I've been to other hearings where prejudicially before a hearing began, there was commentary for me removing a judge. And, I've had attorneys and other judges and people tell me, they're like, well, if you disqualified a judge for cause, of course they all know about it. And I'm like, you know what? Then put me in another venue, because it lends itself to such bias. And let it be noted that when I came in front of this new judge, James Waltz, nothing was before him. I had a motion for reconsideration on an issue, which he shouldn't really even be hearing, because the judge I disqualified was disqualified for cause for bias. So all of his orders should be vacated. Therefore, the anchoring event would be vacated, and then the second part of the hearing, a 1008 motion for reconsideration, would not be able to occur because the original ab initio event is vacated. So I shouldn't have been there. But then the judge, admittedly in the transcript, hijacked and seized the hearing for his own purposes of case management. He went into matters that were not before the court. He was narrating a very prejudicial outcome that he had no information before him, and it was wholly inappropriate on a matter that's already been adjudicated. So what he's trying to do is relitigate and change the decisions of previous judicial officers. And I have like over 1,000 pages of just one subject matter already in my docket, and the judge is just like, well, I want you to rebrief it. You want me to rebrief matters that have been litigated 5 times? I have to do that. I'm going to have to do briefs for decided matters. That sounds great. That doesn't sound biased at all. That doesn't sound prejudicial at all. That doesn't sound unduly burdensome at all. That doesn't sound like a complete dereliction of duty of a judicial officer to follow the existing decisions of this matter. No, that sounds like we could just relitigate everything for 1,000 years until everybody dies. Like, let's just do that. That sounds great. I'm sure that the court's resources are best spent on matters like mine that are 9 years old, that have never been to a trial because the opposing party has not turned in discovery and changed their name 3 times. We got 3 identities at all times. That is a failure to maintain order of the court, and shame on these courts. Shame on these courts. But get out of there, folks. Don't go in there. As bad as your ex is, the court will hand the microphone to the abuser, and they'll gang up
Yes.
on you.
Mhm.
It's like gang rape,
Mhm.
like that's what you're about to go do. Find a retired good judge, find a paralegal, find a mediator, find people that care about human beings, because they don't work at the court. And anybody who works there knows what's going on. I mean, you think that those court reporters sit there day in and day out and don't know exactly what they're doing? You don't think that they
Mhm.
could go to law enforcement? You don't think that they could go to the presiding and say, what I'm seeing is horrifying?
Mhm.
Maybe they're being threatened too.
Mhm.
I mean, in my matter, I have pages of minutes of what would be part of a court hearing missing. And
Mhm.
what's really funny is the minute order is this long narrative about what the attorneys are saying, and it is missing from the transcripts. So, and then the transcripts discuss what they were discussing earlier, and it's not in the transcript. I'm like, they didn't even know how to like. They just like they're like F it, like they just sent out, like they deleted the first few pages, I guess, and then gave up trying to make the fraud an alteration of documents work. I'm sure she'll retire soon, that court
Mhm.
reporter. But yeah, I mean, I've got and we've caught the court reporters completely altering transcripts. It's very frequent.
Mhm.
It's theft by false pretense. You're paying for an official court record and they're changing them.
Mhm.
They're a bunch of
Mhm.
crooks. There you go. There you go. It's a bunch of crooks. So
Yes.
I hope that this is helpful to the good people out there, because you're not alone and you do not deserve what's happening to you. And I have met some of the best people in my life going through this process. I've met some, and also I've met some fake victims that were horrible to me, horrible
Mm.
human beings, and it's shocking. Infighting is also something that I try to avoid in our groups, because we're all being tortured. Like, we're all inmates together, and and I've helped some people that are just, unfortunately, I later come to find out they're horrible human beings. They play
Mm.
when somebody's too much of a victim. Be careful. And when you encounter somebody who doesn't help other people, you might want to stay away from them, because there's a reason they don't have friends, and that there's a reason that nobody likes them, and there's a reason that they don't help anybody, because they only care about themselves.
Mhm.
Find others who help others, and you'll grow together. But avoid the lone wolf. I find them to be very dangerous, and they can also be moles. I got hit up by a
Mhm.
mole time, and he was like such a moron. It was just laughable, because he clearly wasn't part of the family court proceedings, but he tried
Mhm.
to sound like he knew what he was talking about. And people that have been tortured like us, we know what we're talking about. So be
Mhm.
careful. Be careful of wolves in sheep clothing. And the ultimate is the court. It's the court.
Definitely. And I really am glad you spoke out on this, and I would like to have you back on.
Great.
And I how can people reach you?
Well, let's do this, because I'm going to be. I have a tendency to be really busy,
Mhm.
and that can sometimes make people not feel heard. And I've got a few hundred people that I'm already helping. And
Okay.
to be quite honest, I have a little boy that I'm helping in critical condition right now.
Okay.
And so those cases are kind of the mainstay, but I do want to help. So maybe we could aggregate some things with you. I'll share all of the documents of my case, so that if people want to use it as a template, I'll also be happy to share it as a Word document. And I'm not saying it's not legal advice. It's if you want to cut and paste some of my document, if you want to make a poster for your bedroom or something,
Mhm.
go for it. Make pillows, whatever you want to do with my document.
Yeah.
Throw darts at it, if you're a
Oh,
judge.
yeah. Well.
Whatever they want to do, then we'll just make those documents available for, because they're already public. It's already a
Right.
public document,
Exactly.
and this whole, keep this confidential. The only thing I'm supposed to keep confidential is my complaint to the CJP. But maybe someday I'll be able to write a fake one. I'll make up a fake story, and then I'll make like a Mary and John had a case, and then here's how the complaint went, so that people can actually have something. And I know it's hard, folks. Like, look, it took me a few hundred hours to do this, and I'm a very fast reader, and it's like a skill set. I dance ballet, and you start off just jumping around, looking like a munchkin, and then eventually one day, you're on point, and you just grow. And don't beat yourself up for not knowing. Try to get out. And as I said earlier, like I had all these great people. I have people that I'd wait another lifetime to meet that are as great as they are. Wonderful attorneys, titans that helped me. I was alienated from my children. I was lied about. I had false accusations. I spent over $500,000. I was physically assaulted. I had fraud. I mean, like we'll have another time that I'll explain. Like, I have full blown evidence manufacturing in my case by the attorney, by court experts. I caught them. A criminal standard. I have police reports for the misconduct of these persons. And I've seen it all. And then I've seen it all times, all of these other cases. But I have these guys, you're going to find wonderful people, and you have to find a wonderful tribe. There are people that I just can't imagine living without. And I found them here. I found them in this hell hole. So there is goodness everywhere. If we were all locked up together in a concentration camp, which we essentially are, right? We're given case numbers, which are our inmate numbers. We all share that mark. We all share a mark of being an inmate together. So, be good to one another. Share your information. Don't withhold how to do something. Sometimes there's like greediness, or like somebody else is going to know your secret sauce. I'll share any legal document I can. I'll help anybody I can. Marianne, I just you gave somebody to me, and sometimes I'll try to always triage and get you to like somebody who's even better. Like, I can't help everybody, or even like the simple thing I teach people. Sean McMillan does not get children back. Everyone needs to know that. I know Sean. Sean cannot get your children back. The end. He is only there to sue the government after your children have not been given back, or they've been given back in terrible condition. Everyone, that's probably one of the most important things I could probably say today is, because if you're going in the wrong direction, if you're going to the veterinarian's office and you're asking them for a driver's license, they can't help you. And, they just can't help you. So, huge pillars like Sean, who are wonderful in our space. Somebody that's not in your state. That's another thing, is learning the law. Interstate it's challenging at best. Find other parents like yourself. Look at Google Scholar, Scribed, the robing room for newcomers to see how bad your judge is. Log on, see how your judges do. Go to the courthouse. Pull other cases. See how motions are pled. The information is there. I hope that you guys find a way to survive, because it's hard, but do try to get out of court, even in bits and pieces. Get out of that. Get out. There's no goodness there. Okay.
Nothing good comes out of that place. Well, hey, don't jump off, okay?
I won't.
Slam the Gavel's a podcast to help the public understand what really goes on in these family courtrooms. I am your host, Marianne Petrie, author of Dismantling Family Court Corruption, Why Taking the Kids Was Not Enough, and Cry Out for Justice, Poems of Truth. And please join us here again with Angel Law in the future and other exciting guests. Thank you again.
My pleasure, my joy, Marianne. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.